So Politixic was on the Hill this week, and I would say a highlight, although a depressing one, was being there for this press conference.
This is not about politics. This is about people in power and vulnerable girls and young women. A partial release of these files by the DOJ, riddled with improper redactions that expose the vulnerable and shield the powerful from accountability, is not justice. It is injustice. As victims of this crime and citizens of this country, we will not stand for it, and neither should you. This is no longer about us. This is about survivors of sexual abuse everywhere.
That's right.
They are watching us. And if you think that this does not affect you, 1 in 4 women in our country have been touched by this issue. It affects all of us. We are being watched, not only as survivors, but as advocates for those who cannot use their own voice to speak up.
We made it to Washington, D.C. just in time to see the Epstein survivors press conference that happened right before Pam Bondi's hearing, and it was really powerful.
There aren't enough adjectives to describe how horrific that hearing was and how embarrassing it is that Pam Bondi is the U.S. Attorney General.
And I see that my time is almost expired, so I will say this. Do the right thing, Attorney General. Meet with the survivors. They have been asking for a year. Meet with the survivors. Do the right thing. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
May I have 20 seconds of his time?
So that'd be up to the gentleman, but...
Absolutely, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you. I was curious if you, Congresswoman, asked Bill Clinton that. Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't see one tweet when Joe Biden was in office about Bill Clinton. Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once when he was.
Weak sauce. Weak
And
sauce.
also, I want the record to reflect that, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Oh,
is
Jewish.
Jewish. I just want to be clear.
Do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust.
But I think that before we get into that and the Epstein files, I think it's important, like we just did, to center the victims, not just the ones who are brave enough to speak out, but the ones who have been silently suffering all these years, and potentially other ones that we don't know about that are still in these horrific conditions.
There's thousands of accounts from young women, and it's a shame that we have to get this far into it, that this global pedophile ring is being exposed essentially by average Americans who are taking the time to read everything, clip it, and put it on the internet. And you said this in a thread the other day, there's no way this is going away, and I could not agree with you more on that. The amount of information that is being shared by citizen journalists, real journalists, regular people on threads, this is not going to go away. It is all out there in the open. We have access to it, and it's a shame that it took all of this time and thousands of accounts from real life women to the authorities, and still none of these people are in jail. None of them.
None of them. Well, one, and she's in a lower security prison petting puppies. A lot of people are calling this a millennial group project. I want to say that it's a global group project. I just saw that other countries have the unredacted files. We need to fact check that, but I wouldn't be surprised. The fact that just citizen journalists, just regular people, are spending their free time or late nights delving into the just nightmares that we're seeing from these files, from these emails, from the videos that are being uncovered. People are like having these conversation on threads and TikTok and everywhere they can, trying to connect the dots to figure out what the hell was going on over the past several decades. One thing that resonated with me, and I'm curious about you, and I've been writing a lot a lot about this extensively. And it's the idea that, like, yes, obviously the survivors are the biggest victims. They always will be. But in a way, these men and their female accomplices have been grooming generations of women to buy into this pedophilic culture. What are your thoughts on that?
It kind of freaks me out because everything was so normalized. People in the files own Limited Too, Victoria's Secret, Pink. You look at the type of clothing that was coming out at these times, and things like cute and sexy were written on the butts of our sweatsuits that we were wearing in high school. The music that we were listening to, we find out that there was a huge music trafficking industry problem. And it feels like we were just raised in an environment that groomed women specifically to become toys for these people. And, you look at the beauty industry and our standards and the things that have been placed upon us for literally decades upon decades. And it's really fucked up because it's not just this Jeffrey Epstein thing. It goes across governments. It goes across courts. It goes into royal families and corporations and the people that own our pharmaceuticals. And it's kind of a trip because, we've heard about conspiracy theorists, this, and people being found dead and getting put into mental institutions. And I don't think any of it was a lie.
Yeah. The people that I made fun of might have been onto something. And that's tough to admit, but I'm sorry to everyone that I said was crazy when they were talking about all that Wayfair stuff and the pizza and the grape soda, all that stuff. And listen, is every conspiracy theory that's getting corroborated by the files true? Probably not. But I think it's just, not to use this word, but it is a bit of an awakening for us but I think all along there were signs that we were being groomed. The highly sexualized nature of the clothing, really starting in like the late 80s, 90s, all came out of, in many ways, this culture that we're just reading about in the files. The beauty standards, the forever young. I mean, I was a copywriter for Victoria's Secret for almost a decade. And the phrase I always remember, they would do these mood boards that they do kind of in advertising to get us prepared for each season. But I feel like a resounding line was like, our Victoria's Secret girl is forever young. And I never thought anything about it because we'd been conditioned from preteen to teen to young adult that that's the standard, right? And I guess realizing the facts of it, or realizing that we were being gaslit to believe that this is how we were supposed to look. But it's a lot to reckon with. Obviously, the survivors are the ones that we're most centering here. But I think that we are all a part of this ecosystem. And I guess the question is like, where do we go from here?
I don't think anybody has the answer until there's some form of accountability. And I'm starting to lose faith that there's going to be some. I know we're not supposed to say things like that out loud, but it's kind of crazy to read these things and know that all of these people are in charge of our government, not even just pedophilia and doing heinous acts like that to children. We're talking about murdering people. We're talking about kidnappings. I mean, there's kidnappings that we heard about 10 years ago that are being connected to these files. We're talking about Madeleine McCain and potentially JonBenet Ramsey and her father's connections to this. And I'm just kind of sitting back like, what is happening? What is reality versus not? And it's just freaky that nobody is being held accountable. And I just want to know who's going to make that happen. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, I was describing it like I feel like we're all in an Epstein psychosis because
An American
psychosis, right? I mean, this is, I know, I'm kind of speechless when talking about it because I don't want to perpetuate anything that hasn't been corroborated yet, but we're hinting at it. And if anyone's been online and if anyone's algorithm has turned into the Epstein file algorithm, you know what we're seeing and what we're talking about. I mean, and I think we have to remember that adults aren't just seeing it, kids are, children.
Yeah.
It's in their algorithm as well. If you're a parent, just know that my students who are the same age as probably your kids that you have, they're coming to class asking me about it. They're seeing it. And I don't really know how you have a conversation about something like this. And I saw somewhere that they dump this stuff like this on purpose. It's that whole flood the zone thing. But I also think that we're only seeing the lightest of the stuff, which is crazy to say out loud. And they're grooming us to just get desensitized to the stuff we're seeing. And those of you who know what we're talking about. So if that's what we're seeing, what are they going to roll out next? And it's the stuff of horror movies that I don't watch horror movies. So it's like the stuff of horror movies that I would never watch. And it's in my head. And I just think about those survivors and like the things that they probably saw that they can never unsee, that they have to take with them, and then having to relive it again and again, and not having anyone in government be able to or be willing to do anything about it. The whole save the children, the Republican Party, save the children. Where are you now?
I think it's our job as a collective society to save the children. You know, we keep hearing about it from these people that do everything but. And I think we're coming to this global reckoning, at least women, from what I'm seeing. I think women, specifically of our age range, are waking up. And I think we're the ones that have the ferocity to stop this and the tenacity, because we've been told no our whole life. We've been told to be quiet, and we aren't our mothers' and grandmothers' generation. And I think that our generation of women is going to be the one to genuinely protect the women and children, because you look at the things that they're trying to pass in government, for example, the SAVE Act, that is to take away more of our rights, get us locked into marriages that we don't want to be in. And it's just another arm of the patriarchy that's coming in to try and stop us. But I really have to believe that those of us that are strong enough to continue marching forward are gonna make something happen here. I really am believing in the strength of women right now to put all of this out there and to demand the justice that we all deserve. Because I think most women, and men too, I'm not counting men out, but I think most women now, reading these things and realizing what grooming is and assault and consent, I think many of us are realizing that a lot of these things, not Epstein file level, but all of us in some way or capacity have experienced harassment from men in that way. Like this morning, I was remembering something that happened in corporate America to me. And no, nothing happened to me. Nobody touched me, but this was grooming. And it's really kind of weird to wake up in your 40s and realize what's been happening to all of us for 20, 30, 40 years. Wild, man.
Reminds me of what I experienced during Me Too in 2017. Similar kind of thing of like, this is obviously far darker, but you can't believe something's darker than Me Too.
Right.
But I remember reading all the threads of women on Twitter at the time sharing their Me Too stories. And at first I was kind of just like reading it removing my own self from it, just reading these stories like
Right,
with
because
the
you couldn't firsthand relate to it
uh,
or thought
yeah.
at the time because you
And
weren't
then
in Hollywood, scenario.
right. Right. I just remember walking down the street and thinking, yeah, that didn't happen on a movie set or in a modeling studio, but that happened on a regular online date or
In a
happened
regular office.
at a bar in the office. And it was just something that you were
That
told is what men do. It's just what they
what
do.
happens.
And now it's gotten even it's like zooming that was zooming in, and now we're kind of zooming out. And I think that the other thing to keep in mind related to this is you were saying how it's mostly women. Yeah, it's mostly women. And I saw a really great piece about why are so many men silent, and I think it's because no, they weren't, they weren't a part of a pedophile ring. Most men were not, luckily. But I think that men also can low-key feel their complicity here. The porn they watch, where did it come from?
Maybe their silence is coming from a place of guilt,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Maybe they
Because I
haven't
mean,
realized that they objectified women or that they viewed them in this, certain way. And maybe that's why they're so quiet right
and
now.
maybe they still do, and there's a part of them that's like, yeah, this is just like if I had a lot of money, I would do this. Instead I watch it, because I would say people always talk about like, oh, social media, blaming all different things for the reason why people aren't dating as much or getting along, and men aren't, if you're heterosexual, why men aren't asking women out. And I think it's porn. And not to sound like a right winger or whatever, trad wife, but I do think that not porn itself, but the type of porn that men have been exposed to. If you think about if like young teen clothing is influenced by these men, think about what they're infiltrating into the pornosphere, right? And so I think a lot of men feel complicit because they were watching videos of these young women who, let's just call it out, were trafficked
Well,
and
look at this.
continue to be
Men are very vocal about loving women in their 20s. You look at certain celebrities that have only dated under 25-year-old women who are in their late 40s, close to 50s, and it is this standard of recycling young women over and over again, and it's really sick and twisted.
It is. So, yeah, I mean, I wrote something this morning that you think women have been decentering men before? Well, get ready for it because, I mean, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to trust men right now when you see, obviously, these are the extremes of the extreme, but there's a there, if you know what I mean.
There's always a bear, and there always has been since we were small children. Certain family members that we were warned not to sit on their lap and things like that, or,
Huh?
being forced to hug or kiss adults that we didn't know. None of us were shielded from this. I mean, not very many of us were shielded from this type of stuff. And when you think back to your childhood and you realize how men with gross tendencies are protected by families and things like that, and it's like it feels like a lot of people have known what was going on enough to warn young girls like us and others against men like this, but yet no one holds them accountable or does anything to stop it. It is placed on the child or teenager or young woman to protect herself in these situations. And I just think as a society, we have to wholly reject all of this. Like, we cannot say that harming children in this way by the people of the highest powers in the land, we cannot let this go as a society. We can't. In terms of pop culture, today is the last day of the snake, and the snake is the shedding of so many things, and we're going into the year of the horse. And I definitely think that things are on the upswing, and in some way, somehow, justice is coming.